This is Greg Allison with Green Greg. It's coming to you on 23 March 22. Time on deck is 19:33 hours Central Daylight Time. And I'm bringing with you tonight's special guest, Ken Chrosniak. And tonight we're going to talk about what in the world is going on. What is happening in Ukraine? What does it mean for us? What are we getting into? Where is it going to take us? So tonight you're getting the perspective of a General Ken Chrosniak on all this stuff going on and more. We'll probably talk about a few other things tonight too. So buckle up, because Ken is a good friend of mine. He's been real active in helping us get this power grid secure, and he brings a lot to the table. He's got experience. He's been in the military. He started out as an enlisted man and then rose to so he knows how to work for a living, rose to the rank of Brigadier General. And he's even still to this day, after he's retired, an active firefighter. This man cares deeply about our future. So subscribe to my channel, bang the notification bell, and click all to get more of these videos, because I'm also coming back Friday with Dr. Arthur Bradley talking about what you can do to secure your home, your car, your electronics in the event of an EMP. But my friends, we're trying to do everything we can to keep the grid from going down and secure nuclear fuels and other things. Ken is part of this community, so watch my videos. And oh yeah, by the way, I got a special right now you really need to pay attention to with everything going on with inflation the way it is, with the prospects of war and nuclear war. You need long-term food storage. Consider this. Go to prepwithgreg.com. You can get $150 off a 3-month supply that lasts 25 years. This is 2,000 calories a day. And as a mutual friend, John Hollerman will tell you, that's a great bargain, because the other guys only give you 800 calories. So 2,000 calories a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Hey, Dylan will make you a winner. $150 off 3-month supply, and you get $50 off a 4-week supply, which is 2 of those buckets. Each bucket is 2 weeks. You get 6 buckets with that supply. Click on the My Patriot Supply logo, and it takes you and get all of the kind of prepping supplies at My Patriot Supply, and they are second to none in the industry and availabilities of different types of long-term food storage options. My friends, check them out. Check me at prepwithgreg.com. Links will be below. Ken, tell me, what in the world is happening in Ukraine? What's happening to Russia, and where do you think this is going?
It's quite interesting from a military perspective. And from my military perspective, I was always taught to obey the 9 principles of war. You know, mass, offensive, objective, surprise, economy of force, maneuver, unity of command, and stealth, and so on. Almost all of them were completely ignored. You can get by with ignoring maybe 1 or 2 of those and do well. But you basically, it's a football team, the way the professional football teams, they use the very same principles of war. You know, simplicity, maneuver, surprise. They ignored every one of those. As far as I could see, there was no surprise. Ukraine knew after after a few months that they were going to be invaded sometime in the future. They massed. They didn't mass at the strategic level. They split their forces in the north, the east, and the south. You know, from Crimea, and you split your forces. You split your command and control. There's not an economy of force. Very little maneuver, like the 45-mile backup, mainly due to the logistics problems. And by the way, I like my famous saying, the difference between, you hear the comments that amateurs discuss tactics and professionals discuss logistics. And that's what's really screwing over the Russian right now, because the difference between a click and a bang is logistics.
You gotta have something to go bang.
Gotta have it.
Or you just get a click.
My viewpoint is that they've already slipped quite very distinctly on the strategic objective by splitting their forces, their command and control, as evidenced by the death of a bunch of their so-called generals, 2- and 3-star generals that they've had out there by Ukrainian snipers, which are pretty well trained. You don't normally see general officers down the front lines. The only general officer we lost in all 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq was General Sam Green, who I knew his wife quite well. I only met him once, had breakfast with him. He got killed by an infiltrated Afghan terrorist with the AK-47. But all the rest have never been on the front line. Now they have general officers in the Russian army that are going down like in Mariupol and going out there and actually in the field trying to induce the soldiers to fight. They don't want to fight. I think the morale of the Russian forces, they had no idea what the hell they're doing there. They were told that they're fighting the Nazis. They're going over and they find out that they're fighting men and women and children. Also, you've got the mentality of the soldier is much, much different. When you actually get even David Bellavia, the Medal of Honor winner, I listened to his radio show, and he said he was amazed that that the Russians were jumping out of their armored, out of their tanks and out of their BMPs, out of their personnel carriers. Once the first couple of tanks were hit with a Javelin missile, they just jumped out and ran off. And of course, they were picked off, by good Ukrainian forces or captured. The morale is so low, it's very, very difficult. Then operationally, it's the same way. You've got conscripts and so on. We hear a lot about the conscripts. Well, about 230 or 250,000, whatever, are common everyday the peasants to the Russian army. I don't call it the Russian army anymore. I call it the Soviet army, which is what Putin would call it too. They're back to the Soviet forces, and the Soviet forces, even at the operational level. Years ago, I studied in armor school as a young armor officer. You learn how to kill a T-72. You learn how to kill a BMP. You learn how to do a precision strike, and you learn echelon of forces. You learned it was a very radical but mathematical computation about the ratio of forces and so on, which is good to a point. But then you get into the human dimension, which is different. Like the fighting, who do you think is fighting better, Ukrainian military or Russian military? The Ukrainians are fighting for their homeland, the mother Rodina the Soviet army is not fighting for their mother Rodina, for their motherland. They're fighting. They don't know what they're fighting, I don't believe, but we don't know for sure what they're hearing. But the Ukrainian forces, they're fighting for their lives. And you try to instill upon the people in the United States, even let's just say several weeks ago in Kiev or Lvov or whatever, you were living a normal life, like you're sitting in your theater right now, or in your transmitting area. You had a nice supper. You'd be able to go to bed and relax and think about your grandchildren and so on. They had the same thoughts about several weeks ago. All of a sudden, you get several million moving into Poland, and Romania, Slovakia. Getting out of the nation. And you look at the people in those areas where they're assembled. The refugees. They're well dressed. They look physically fit. They're Ukrainian. They're not too many obese. They're fit. You can tell that they have money. There's a very wealthy nation exporting wheat to us and fertilizer and all other oil. It was an export nation. I'm trying to encapsulate this all in one, is that now the whole world's turned upside down. The only recourse that they have that I can see right now, there's two prongs of this. Number one, it can happen here in a few seconds with a cyber attack or a nuclear, whatever it is, a hemp attack, a high altitude nuclear burst, or preferably a cyber attack, which the Russians have been in our grid since 2014, and we have almost zero defense, even with the legacy systems, Windows 10 and so on. How are you going to protect yourself? And even the government is hacked into, including the FBI, DHS, CISA has been hacked into. So I won't go that rabbit trail anymore. But their whole lives have been upset, and right now, going down to the tactical, the per number between the operational and the tactical level, I think is very, very dangerous right now, because I believe that actually they're going into some strategic reserve, especially for artillery. They're not logistically prepared for the siege, for the rape of Ukraine, the siege that is taking place in multiple cities. That's taking a lot of resources, a lot of tank and artillery. They're not going to fire too many more hypersonic missiles anymore. By the way, they're not 10 times the speed of sound. They're 5 times the speed of sound, but they're really nasty. If they are indeed hypersonic missiles, they may not be. Their attrition in the air has been very, very good. We're able to kill a lot of their fighters and so on with the Stinger missiles and so on. And as long as we can keep that logistics pipeline going in there without being attrited. But what it boils down to is that if I was a military officer in the Soviet army right now, I would just lay siege to the cities and level them, make it biblical, not a brick on top of a brick. And just because it's all war crimes now. But anyway, why not just throw all the dice on and just obliterate the area? And then hopefully that he'll probably think that Zelensky will sue for peace just to keep the death of the innocent civilians, women and children, including women and children, to a minimum. Whether he'll do that or not, I don't know. I don't believe he will. I wouldn't either. It's just the way that a war is. It's almost like Stone Mountain, Georgia. You know, it's a complete obliteration, annihilation of an area that we find abhorrent. And you can only imagine what's going on in some of these areas, you know, with the fighting and the rape and the pillaging. You know what's going on right now, and that's probably why those generals are down there. They're trying to rein that in and make them fight more, and try to and lying to them and saying this is for your mother that you're fighting and so on. But I'm not sure how the Chinese may become involved with this, either with forces or with weaponry, or bringing in some fighting forces from Africa, some TCN third country nationals coming in to fight a mercenary type war that will show no quarter whatsoever. Basically, when you corner a rat, you never know which way they're going to turn. And I think we're going to corner him. And I'm not sure if some of the neighboring NATO nations will have a certain amount of fill on this and start looking for any kind of incursion to send troops in there, like Poland. It's a freedom-loving nation, because anybody, even in NATO, which I think is still somewhat neutered in many ways with the firepower, but the way the Russian army or the Soviet army is now, I think they could probably do quite well against the racial forces with the Russian army, because they've been treated so heavily. Is that eventually, if you capitulate and give in on Ukraine, even half of Ukraine, they're going to want Estonia, Latvia, and they will. Who's going to stop them? NATO? No, we'll just watch the rape of Latvia. We'll watch the rape of Estonia and other. Who's going to stop them? They'll say that the Russians are being persecuted in those areas and so on, and then just move in. But right now, they got the best of both worlds. The Soviets do. I call them the Soviets, excuse me, which is what Putin wants. He wants to go back to the Soviet military and the rightful place, like China in 2049 wants to consolidate the Communist Party and so on at their 100th anniversary. I'm throwing a lot of flash out right now, but I don't believe it's going to end well for Russia. So when you corner that, will he employ chemical and biological? Probably not. What good would it do? He can level it unless he's real low on the reserves for artillery and so on. He might. Is he going to employ nuclear, tactical nuclear, which is negligible radiation, like half kiloton, which is nominal? I spent 4 years in an 8-inch artillery unit, nuclear, as a chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear enhanced officer. And also on the firing line is that there's negligible radiation, but it ruins the whole day for tactical operations, with a half kiloton. It's imposing, but you can still farm that land not long after that. It's just new Torino. I'm throwing a lot of information out right now, but in the United States, what can they do? They can make life pretty miserable as far as our critical infrastructure goes. All 16 of them, which the premier one is energy/electricity. You just nail our electric grid, even in certain regions of the country. Let's just say the Northeast, the whole Washington, New York corridor, which they have submarines off the coast of our country right now. So does China, that can fire nuclear missile, in 40 to a couple hundred kilometers above us and so on, and pretty well ruin our defense supply base and so on, and neuter, like 20 miles from where I'm standing right now is a naval supply center that controls both fleets, the Atlantic and Pacific fleets, right in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. This is not top secret. That's one of the first places I would hit, unless they disengage and actually split off some of the operations, which hopefully with our leaders now, hopefully the military and civilian leaders now have done, that they power some of that down. But who knows? All you have to do is just hit one of those areas to knock all the electricity off. The backup generators only last, well, as long as the fuel keeps arriving too. But you know what happens to refineries when your electricity goes down? They stop refining. I covered too many areas here right now, but which one would you like to specifically look at? I just believe that disregard maybe even 2 of the 9 principles of war, you've pretty well screwed yourself. And I think he's disregarded all of them: mass, maneuver, surprise, simplicity, unity of command, economy of force. He split up his forces, which I'm
Sometimes,
amazed that he made these blunders.
Ken, a football team that wins continuously will get complacent at some time. They'll think, yeah, we're going to win this. And that's when they get whipped. And maybe that's what happened. Russia got overconfident. They got cocky, but they went in after the ground started getting soft, so they couldn't roll their tanks on the ground. They had to go to the highways. And once they're on the highways, they're shooting ducks. I mean, for Pete's sake, all you got to do is take out the lead vehicle, the rear vehicle, and nobody moves. Then you can just work your way to the center and take out everything in line. It's a highway of death. We saw that in Iraq. Highway of death there.
I've been on the highway of death. I did an assessment afterwards, and with the Center for Lesson Learned, and it was ugly. But don't forget the highway of death in Kuwait. They were Type C forces. They had low quarters on some of them. They didn't have these were not the IRGC. No, these were not the Kuwaiti. The Iraqi Republican Guard. No, these were not professional soldiers. They were conscripts, probably going to some of the schools and so on. They were just gathered up. And it's and sent. They were chopped up by 20 Mike depleted uranium rounds, and we annihilated them. And I know because there were parts of them still inside of the tanks and still inside of the BMPs and the armored vehicles. And but even then, the regular forces knew enough not to be on that highway of death. We were cornered and defilade on both sides, and he had to run up, and that's when we hit him hard.
Well, that's what the Russians are doing. They're going in on highways.
They still have professional forces out there, the Soviet forces. Whether they're going to bring in some more from the East, the Far East, maybe Chinese mercenaries, I don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to reach a point very shortly where they'll have to, we have no idea. I'm not even, and I don't trust our defense intelligence agencies, and I don't trust the IC community if they couldn't figure out that, especially the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley and Austin and so on, if they couldn't figure out that the Taliban was a little stronger than we thought they were, if they couldn't figure out that it was a ridiculous, stupid idea to leave the air base, the big air base, and go to Kabul, which eventually, the administration, they murdered 13 innocent, good Marines, Navy, and Army personnel, and so on, and then did a high-value target on a bunch of people trying to bring water into their own people, and so on. Completely, not even NGOs. It killed a bunch of men, women, and children. With as Milley calls it, a righteous strike. Whoever painted that target should be in jail also, because it was a bad paint. And it was painted by somebody with a HVT that was probably flown out of Creature Nellis. And it's just insane. And then to have a Marine Corps 4-star general, CENTCOM commander, get up and embarrass himself. They said, everything's okay. The Taliban will protect our Marines at Kabul. What? That's treasonous. Are you kidding me? We just killed 11 beautiful Marines and 1 Army and 1 Navy. And you're saying that the Taliban is going to be in charge of protection for their Marines at Kabul? No, that's when you just, but when you're cornered, like I really believe internationally and militarily that Putin and his Soviet army in the future, you don't know which way they're going to strike. It's like that beautiful general, I think it was in the Korean War, that it may have been a Marine or Army, that said, we're surrounded on 360 degrees. We got them right where we want, and we can attack in any direction. You don't know where he's going to attack. And I got a feeling he's going to go for annihilation. He's already committed war crimes. He's already, if we do get a hold of him and his generals and his colonels and his majors and the Soviet army, right now, even now, they don't have an NCO corps. We have an NCO corps that's the backbone of our military. And they make the decision. They decided how to go through the hedgerows in Germany. They You leave it up to the street smart kid or the stump jump county young soldier from West Virginia somewhere. They'll figure things out. The Soviet army, no. And that's what they're doing. We, the Ukrainian, we are killing a lot of these bad guys, the generals and so on. And hopefully, we have no idea how many we're actually killing. We're probably killing a lot of good, they're not good, but a lot of pretty solid enemy officers and so on, which are the real backbone. Unfortunately, we learned a long time ago that the NCO Corps is the backbone of the Army, and they think just the opposite.
That's why Army prevails in a lot of conflicts, is because we trust the soldiers. We delegate the thinking to the lower levels. We don't leave it all in the tops. When I was in the military, I was enlisted like you started out, and they taught us, hey, you go for the command vehicle, the one with the flag. You take it out, and the other guys, they don't know what to do. That's how we fought the Germans too, right?
The term for that is called Aufstellungstaktik. And I remember the general that took, because I worked with him. Commander General Staff College when he was a brigadier. I forgot his name. He's a beautiful, beautiful man, beautiful general, a real warrior. A real warrior, not a politicized perfume prince like. I won't go there. Like we have now, politicized generals and admirals. But he said basically be able to power down where everyone knows the commander's intent, all the way down to, as far as possible, the lowest element. Because when you come up with an order from a general or a colonel or a whatever, that's 1/3 of the decision-making process. Then it takes time to go down, maybe a day or so, maybe a few hours or so, to go down to the company level and so on. And then the soldiers got to explain that and say, get up. The sergeant's got to look at me and say, get up and let's go do this. Follow me, hopefully follow me, instead of like some generals say, I'll be behind you. But it's called Aufstellungstaktik. They know the commander's intent. So if people are killed off or let's just say out of touch, communications, whatever, the commander's intent, and somehow it'll marry up with other forces that may be aligned with you on the front or in the maneuver base. You all understand the basic maneuver, and they don't have that. We do.
Yeah.
And right now, I saw some pictures of the tanks going into urban combat, and they had Molotov cocktails raining in on them. And I think when they exited, they probably just picked off. Then either taken prisoner or shot, whatever. Who cares? But I think the Ukrainians try to say we, because my mind is fighting right along with them. You always go to the sound of the cannon. If I was there, I'd be right alongside of them. But they didn't know what to do. You never send anybody with urban combat. You have the infantry out there to clean out all the ash and trash in between, to nail the javelins before they hit your tanks. You don't send tanks into urban combat in channeled in tunnels going through a city. You don't do that. So who are their commanders that are allowing them to do that? That you send infantry in there to annihilate the forces in front. So if you lose infantry, so what? They can be replaced, but the tanks are irreplaceable and so on, and they're being nailed. And the biggest thing, we've got to keep the javelins, the stingers, and anything else we can send them to kill the enemy.
Well, Ken, let me ask you, in modern warfare, now that we have so many UAVs and handheld shoulder-launched missiles like the In-Laws, the Javelins, the Stingers, are we in an era that tanks are going to become obsolete, or is the Soviet tactics just that bad? Which is it?
Their tactics are bad. If they use combined arms warfare, like the Germans used, like we used, like David Bellavia used when he got the Medal of Honor in Fallujah, the second battle, they should have never been a second battle, but the second battle of Fallujah. I'm trying to say that tank warfare is open field warfare. Even back in World War II, the Sherman tanks, those people were expendable. But what he had, a 70 millimeter, my goodness, he had a pea shooter against Panzer tanks, which is the only way to kill a Panzer is to kill it in the ass end, in the fans, and the fins. You had to get it. They're not going to turn their ass to you. You had to get around them, but you're going to die trying to do it. And there was maybe 1 or 2 points where you probably could have killed the driver or done, but they were all heavily armored. And I'm not even sure. You even take like our armor. I think 2 years ago, the Germans beat us at Grafenwehr on the tank tables on the NATO competition. I think it's the first time we lost probably since Reforger or what back return of forces to Germany. I don't know what, I think we normally won, but this time actually the German army, maybe it was 3 years ago, they beat us. So I don't denigrate my armor, but look how long we've been in a low intensity, mid intensity conflict and the conflict/war in Afghanistan and Iraq and so on. And we're experts at low intensity conflict and salacious payments and win the hearts and minds of the people. When you have that kind of combat, it's World War II, it's Bastogne, it's down and dirty, it's hand to hand. And I don't know if Leah the transgender soldier is going to be able to fight that. I don't think so. No.
Well, hey, you know what? The thing that got the Afghans up in arms and caused them to revolt and run us out was when we flew that woke flag. Once they put up that flag, that you know which flag I'm talking about. Once they put that up, the people there went nuts, and then they started attacking. That's what triggered it right there, was that flag. You can't go in a country and so disrespect their culture and expect everything's going to be a-okay. It's not, because they had some hard felt beliefs over there, and we just kind of run over them and thought we'd get away with it, and they showed us otherwise. They stood up real fast and kicked us hard. That would have probably not happened like that had we not taken that step, because it all happened then. That was the trigger.
It's called the ugly American complex. I think they made a movie about that.
Well, we're ate up with ourselves sometimes in our own arrogance.
Now you get enemy nations, and I'll include Pakistan because they finance Al Qaeda and ISIS. The nuclear Iran. We're going to give them billions that they can arm the Houthis more, whatever. Yeah, they'll abduct more, whatever. And North Koreans, Chinese, and even the war exercises that we had. I think it was General Hyten, the not newly retired vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that said out of the 11 or 12 exercises that they had on how to defend Taipei and Taiwan, we had our quote, in his words, we had our asses kicked, end quote. All of them, because we can't supply them with logistics.
There you go.
Guam will be vaporized. Okinawa will be vaporized. There's little, what are you going to do? Count on the Australians, New Zealand, France, UK, Canada, and Japan. When the Chinese already said they will attack Japan, it's in South Korea, because what's going to happen if we're once we are engaged, let's just say with NATO or whatever happens. My idea is that Poland will become involved soon. I don't know if that'll happen or not. I'm hoping it does. They're real freedom-loving people out of all of the nations in NATO, all of them.
You know what strikes me, Ken?
I can't believe that Turkey's a member of NATO, but that's another story.
You know what surprises me, Ken? Well, Turkey's had a flip. But what surprises me, Ken, is if you look in NATO right now, if you look at the troops we're amassing in the eastern NATO nations on the border, we've just amassed 140,000 troops, and all the Europeans and all the European nations, which they outnumber us in population, 100,000 of the 140,000 troops are American.
I know. That's what
we got 100,000 of our boys there protecting the Europeans. They outnumber us. What is that all about? That's one thing that always bugged me when I was in the Army. I always felt like the guys in NATO, the Europeans weren't holding their end of the bargain. They relied on us too much, and that always bugged me when I was a kid, way back when I was in the Army, decades ago to this day.
They were laughing. Oh, that's why I enjoyed Trump. And when you saw Trump at the G7, the different summits, he was like the main duckling with all the little ducklings following. He was always right in the center, and they were all trying to have pictures taken, trying to be near him. He was the alpha dog. There is no doubt about it that we would not be in this situation right now if Trump was in office. We would not be.
Putin didn't. There's the only time Putin didn't invade anybody was when Trump was in office. So
Yeah,
Something to be
and
said.
also we used to train years ago with two Mercs, major regional combat situations, two theaters of war, two and a half. But if you do engage in Russia and we engage in China, if I was Kim Jong-un, I would say, let's roll. My hero, Todd Beamer, his beautiful words, let's roll. Let's just go to Seoul and have a good time. I really believe that times are going to be tough here in the United States because we have a military force that's forward projection. They're the tip of the spear, but the whole staff is being held by who? Supply chain, defense industrial base, and so on. You cut that back, those soldiers are not going to be able to make it back to the United States. That you won't even have an air base to land in because there's no landing. I know too many scenarios, and I remember being on the Joint Staff and going over the 2102 scenario, the attack on Bandar Abbas, and teaching too many war plans. And there's some out there that when I was on my first recall out of retirement on the Joint Staff, Rumsfeld said, let's get rid of a lot of war plans. Some were just SOPs anyway. So we went from like 63 down to whatever amount, but they're real war plans and they were good. And some of them were very, very ugly that I can't go into, but there's some there that were very, very tenuous. You're really taking a chance, but you need logistics. And you need naval logistics. You can't go flying stuff into Guam. You can't go flying stuff in Okinawa. They're not going to leave. You're not going to bring it in on a lot of naval ships. The cruise missiles from China will take care of those very easily.
Well, Ken, that underscores what you said, because our politicians get involved. They fund the warships, but they're not funding the tenders, the cargo ships, the merchant navy. We have totally cut out the logistics that we need. So our military is not going to be able to survive a sustained conflict.
Right.
We cut ourselves, like you said, we cut the logistics. The logistics is crucial.
Yeah, I spent 2 weeks with a RIMPAC exercise. I went out with both my sons. My son was in the Merchant Marine Academy then. He was a third mate on a ship. That's part of the Merchant Marines. They spent a year at sea, actually, along with their workload in school. And we were supplying Chilean vessels and Japanese and Canadian, I think, whatever. But we were also supplying aircraft carriers and submarines with patrol. It was the Tippecanoe, the USNS Tippecanoe. Then they had the Yukon. I was on a little bit later, and there's all kinds of tenders and so on. But are they hardened to EMP? I assume, and I know what you mean. I know what assume means. I assume they are, and I believe our warships are hardened to them. But to what degree? Those are mammoth. They may be huge mammoth floating bricks. Don't even destroy them. Just hit them with an EMP. It's just.
Well, we know the Chinese seem to have disabled one of our ships with the RF weapon. And
the Chinese, by the way, this used to be classified when I was teaching at the War College. I won't say, but the Chinese have hardened a significant portion of their eastern grid to EMP1. But that came right from PERC.
All right, Ken, where do we think all this is going to go? I think this is an important question. I think, you said that, you corner a rat, you don't know which way he's going to go. I think in this case, we're at a lot of risk here, because the most important thing to any dictator is the preservation of their power. They don't even care about their own people.
Yeah.
They care about staying in power. A lot of people don't get that. A lot of people don't get how they think in general. They don't think like us in the West. And we make the assumptions that they think like us, that they are going to do what we expect, and they don't. And we're seeing that now. And we got to take that into account. So he's going to be more keen on his own preservation than anything. So what do you think is the chances that this will escalate into a World War III, into perhaps a nuclear war?
I don't believe that Zelensky is going to capitulate in any way. Winston Churchill came out with some time ago, and I think I may have mentioned it to you before, that you can't negotiate with a tiger when your head's in its mouth. And that's how Zelensky is right now. Even though he's extremely brave and so on, he's not like the old type Ukrainians that were, with the sex traffic and drugs, and they've had their problems and so on. But I don't believe that. Hopefully, I don't believe personally that he's he was aware of a lot of that stuff, but he's not involved in it. So I believe that he's a good man. He's trying to save his country. I had no idea, but I really believe it'll take not much of a tripwire to initiate World War III. And it brings me back to what Patton said in 1945, that we're so close right now. Let's just turn our forces east and take Russia. We're going to fight him someday anyway. That's probably why he was killed. But that's a whole new ballgame. My guess is that the collusion between China, a lot of people are watching what's going on right now. And I think even China is very much shocked that there was such ineptitude right now, strategic, operational, and tactical, for the Russian forces, which were considered the Mongol, the Genghis Khans coming across the border and so on, and just completely annihilating and overrunning Ukraine. They're not doing it. They're being held off. And not so much by 80-year-old grandmothers who are fighting also, undoubtedly, especially with the rape of Manipur. There's nasty stuff going on there right now. I know there's nasty stuff going on there right now that are definitely war crimes by a bunch of sadistic forces and so on. Remember Stalin back in World War II, when he said, let the peasant army go over and rape and kill as much as possible. And they did. And these Soviet soldiers are no different. You've got even the ones that are probably in many ways completely innocent and so on. You still have to destroy them. To get back to your question, I'm confused. I don't know. It's all personality right now. We already know the personality of Putin. He doesn't care. He's committed multiple international war crimes that anybody, we need a Valkyrie type person just to blow him up. But even then, you can't even get him with a bomb anyway, because he's at the other end of the table. He probably has people tasting his food to maybe they died along the way. Who knows? He's a hard man he's a hard man to assassinate. And thank goodness those of Zelensky. He's had a few attempts on his life, but is a brave man. I guess he goes out to the hospitals, even talking to people. He's just unbelievable. I hope his wife and his family are out of the country. Hopefully he's not foolish enough to keep them. But I just know that militarily the Russians can be beat. But my Ukrainian brothers of arms, the colonels and the sergeants and the generals there, these are everything we can get them, because they're fighting a hell of a war right now. And I don't know how they're surviving, but they're managing to kill a lot of bad people. And I go to bed at night and I feel good. I guess I saw the one helicopter shot down by a Stinger missile. You may have seen it on TV. And even some of my fellow combat veterans think the same way. I know they do, because we discussed it on LinkedIn or whatever, in a light way. You feel bad for the crews, because there's human beings on there. There's souls on board that helicopter. But hey, good shot. Yeah, they were out to kill innocent civilians and women and children. They're hitting bread lines and so on with bombs. People just trying to eat. And they have Soviet forces open in Mariupol, just on innocent civilians in the crowd, just open up with AK-47s and just start killing them. They're the ones that have to be destroyed. And I think the generals on the Russian army are trying to do that. They're trying to have some command and control, which that, along with the other 8 principles of war, they've completely ignored. But also, I'm thinking more of the defense of my own country right now. That's why I enjoy the Secure the Grid. Tommy Waller, Frank Gaffney, Dr. Baker, Mary. There's so many people. We've got so many disparate, so we have no center, we have no focal, we have no person in charge. There's so many great ideas out there. Geomagnetic, for the E3, along with smart people working this stuff. I'm amazed. I get the roll up on after the 1300 call on every Friday, and I'm amazed at all the energy out there. But even if you started hardening even most relevant portions of the grid right now, it will still take, even for the hierarchy, the higher tier nuclear power plants, refineries, hospitals, and hospitals, give or take, but you won't have hospitals if you don't have refineries for fuel, for the backup generators, whatever, power plants and transformers, and circuit breakers and so on, which, by the way, we get 350 from communist China right now, which have back doors to them, but I won't go there. If it's going to take, and all the great ideas going on in San Antonio, they're hardly the grid of San Antonio. It's fantastic. And it's wonderful that these electric industries are doing that. At least we got Center Point Energy. This wonderful work they're doing and Duke Energy. It's still going to take years, and it's too late for that. It's too late for that right now.
So Ken, what we need a
We need
stop.
what you're selling right there, Patriot. We need food assets. You've got to start taking care of yourself and to be a prudent biblical type prepper. And don't build an ark. Well, build an ark if you want to. They'll hack into it anyway. And build it now before the power goes out. Otherwise, you're gonna have to have all manual tools. But when I extract a little bit too much because I get so excited about this because there's not a damn thing's been done for 20 years, at least till 2004 EMP Commission report. And when the president, I remember briefing the president and seeing some of the very basic words that David Bellavie and I presented to the President Trump back in 2016, as when he was a candidate. We saw some of those words in the executive order in March of 2019. It was thrown in the trash can by Biden, or it was to be rewritten. It was suspended. Well, because they're saboteurs in DOE and DHS, and I can name them. They're saboteurs. They're treasonous people that slow roll this going through, so Trump wouldn't have any kind of. But they're also they're also putting at risk the lives of a lot of millions of American people, just not to give another win. And also, there's 3 National Defense Authorization Acts, which a lot of your listeners probably know about, maybe not. That's the orders from Congress, the Senate. Well, the Congress is the Senate and House, and the representatives, and the president, the POTUS, saying, you will do this, DOE, DHS, DOD, Interior, you will harden, and it says very specifically with timelines and even said in there, like the executive order. They blew it off. For the past 2 years, they were told that FEMA should run a nationwide, not a regional, but a nationwide exercise from a high altitude nuclear burst, or a GMD. They haven't done it yet, and they're not going to. We'll do it next year. So you just not bitch slap. You just stepped on it. You just spit in the face of the Congress and the president, saying, "Well, we're not going to do it." Or you come out with a long range plan of what, 15 pages. That was an insult to my intelligence to read that. You got to be kidding me. It was written like about a 10th grade level anyway. It wasn't well written. I can't believe that they put that piece of junk out. DHS. You got to be kidding me. And there's good people working there. I know a lot of good people there that are just so frustrated. And I can name them too, which I'm not going to do it now. They'll lose their job. But there's a lot of, and how many people know, people say, well, communication is key. Well, I have 3 slides that former Commissioner Chris Fugate made himself, that briefed about the electric grid with a GMD5, a global magnetic disturbance. You know what, 11 billion nuclear bombs in our atmosphere, a worldwide conflagration. And it shows after 30 days, everything stopped except ham radio operators. Everything. The panel telephone system, Inmarsat, the LEO, GEO, and MEO satellites, they're degraded, denied, and destroyed. And I usually tell my listeners when I give this briefing, you better marry a ham radio operator, you know, because they're going to be worth their weight in gold as long as there's fuel.
Yeah.
You got fuel, you'll die like the rest of us. I'm very, very negative with that. In fact, it keeps you awake at night. It keeps me awake at night.
I know that. So Ken, what I think we need to do in the meantime as a stopgap is our community, we got to get to these adjutant generals and make sure that they start formulating plans, working with their top EMA directors at each state. Yes. Adjutant general and the EMA director of each state working together to develop plans to have the National Guard escort fuel trucks, maybe provide fuel trucks, because the fuel trucks aren't going to have fuel to run without some other backup. They're going to be targets, and there's not going to be logistics to maintain them, but maybe working with the National Guard and the EMA together, if they pre-plan this, they can deliver fuel for a while to these nuclear power plants.
But you have to have selected refineries that you can harden. It's not easy.
Right.
Because they start imploding. They like Dr. George Baker said, the product starts backing up and you got to ream them out. You need electricity, you need backup power right away, not batteries and all this stuff. But the adjutant generals are responsible for the protection of their state. You come up with an up plan, situation, mission, execution, command and control, and to do this. And I started making, well, I won't go there. With Impact America, we started a situation. In fact, we gave it all over to Senator Bob Hall, and he was fantastic.
Ken, we got a lot of friends in Texas and Louisiana and our Harden grid community. We need to work with them to work with these refineries to make sure we got some kind of backup generation.
You need that. And I think Senator Hall, now that they got rid of Senator Hancock on that Business and Commerce Committee, who was a huge log in the road that they defeated actually the protection of the grid. Back in I went down there twice and briefed that committee, as Tommy Waller and a lot of other great Americans did, Dr. Peter V Pry, who I think the world of, and we had two big, huge exercises over the electromagnetic defense task force that Major David Stuckenberg, Dr. Stuckenberg now, had brought up, of course, that it was a brainchild of Lieutenant General Stephen Quast,
right,
who was a wonderful American,
right,
and actually instigated or founded the initial actions and so on and mechanizations to harden the grid down to San Antonio and the 11 military bases that make up the Joint Base San Antonio. But it's like John Hollerman brilliantly said, you can harden the base anywhere. You can harden anywhere and export that information off to other cities and some military bases, how to harden themselves, which they're doing right now with CSP, a natural gas municipally owned huge energy company. They're wonderful Americans working there, and they're doing it. They're hardening the air base, the fuel refineries and so on that supplies the air base to keep the lights on at the airstrip to land at night. They're doing that. But when you get a city of, let's just say, 3.5 million people, along with the government, when you're the only one with power, where do you think people are going to go to like a moth to a flame? They're gonna come to San Antonio, and you better have food. Now, there's not a lot of gardens out there all around San Antonio. A lot of sand, not too many worms either, right? No, you ain't got nothing around there. How the hell? How are you going to get food into San Antonio to feed probably 20 million people? No police force. No. What are you going to do when the SHTF? And that goes for any city. And people have to think about that right now. You get the AOCs of the world, and you get the other people out there and so on. If you're really concerned about Brooklyn and all these other areas, you had better watch, especially when 20% of your power comes from a communist Chinese extra high voltage transformer and coming into your city, and 18% of the power going to Las Vegas comes from Chinese communist.
You haven't heard the latest? It's the crew that AOC is part of is right now trying to promote legislation to shut down more of our energy production here in the United States. They want to shut down more the drilling, the pumping, the refining. They're pushing that right now.
Each individual state, there's a movement starting in Pennsylvania that once we spit out this Democratic governor that we have, Wolf, it doesn't even matter. Each individual state can produce their own energy, never mind what the federal government says, as long as you don't export that energy beyond your state. Like in Pennsylvania, the unions get together and start up fracking again. You have leases that have already been approved. Just start producing energy. Pay the little fines that they want and so on, but just start producing energy. We're the second highest tax in the United States right now. I think California is worse, or New York. What doesn't matter? Everyone's going to be around $6-7 a gallon. But that doesn't bother me. And don't listen to the BS out there from the Democrats saying that, oh, we got to save the Ukraine. Let's just, so we better bite the bullet. That money's, go ahead, let's dump out the vodka at the liquor stores and all that. That's nothing. Money's, we still traded with Japan during World War II. How many people know that? we still had some trade with them, but I won't go there either. Yeah, we had our industrialists back then too. It's just it's extremely frustrating. But I'm really encouraged about getting these, like the San Antonio and the Lake Wiley project with Ambassador Cooper of Duke Energy. It's just a matter of getting, well, look, it's been a few years now since Duke Energy donated a $1 million transformer to test. But yet the DOE has not put up the money just to move it over to whatever has to be done. Ambassador Cooper knows it. It's a lot better than I do. And they got together with nuclear, gas, and nuclear, natural gas and hydro to be able to support each other and do black starts. And I just got off of a wonderful, a great thing from Avi Schnurr with the EIS Council.
Yeah, let me define. Let me define for everybody. Black start is the term we use for starting up a nuke plant, because a nuke plant can't start itself. A nuke plant requires external power to start and to run itself, and to keep.
We've never tried it.
Operating.
It's never been tried in the United States. I don't think the only way you can actually do it was from hydro. Hydro can black start itself. You just open up the turbines, and unless God, who by the way can sink the Titanic, which he did, unless God shuts off the water going through that turbine, then they black start. They can start exporting energy to the coal-fired plants, which burns like what, a ton per second. They need supply of coal.
We're shutting them down thanks to Obama.
Yeah, you need a railroad to be able to bring the coal in. It's called cascading effects. Natural gas cannot be black started. Maybe there's a way to do it. I don't know. But you still takes the electricity. Like at my firehouse, we have a Generac generator, natural gas. It's wonderful, but it takes the electricity to pump that in. What you need is about a 10,000 gallon slaved diesel plant under the ground. That you can start, and then you need repair parts, class 9 for that generator, and technicians to be able to replace it. Which it's a comedy of errors. We've just closed our. We have like John Hollerman in his brilliant way. We have a normalcy bias that thinks things are never going to change. We're comfortable, and I think it's what is it? Some brilliant people. I have it on my telephone, but my back hurts too much to lean over and get it. Is that when people encounter the uncomfortable, their cognitive dissonance, they can't accept it. They're shut down. It's like a pre-PTSD. I noticed that in some lectures I give. I try not to pump sunshine into the room too much, but I try to say, here's what's happening. There's no way to sugarcoat this. And we can keep it from happening because it's going to happen someday. Even NASA knows that it's 12% not. They didn't say likelihood, they damn near said certainty that within the next 10 years, within the next decade, something is going to happen. And when you get a huge plasmatic geomagnetic disturbance that will pop off about, like in 1859, the equivalent of about 10 billion hydrogen bombs in the atmosphere, that's going to affect your Prime Video on TV. And
it's going to be more than that. It's going to be more than that. It's going to take it all down.
The only question that President Trump asked me directly, it had a DT next to the name, the 34 follow-up questions. I only had 10 minutes to brief him. So his handlers sent me 34 questions. And I had Ambassador Cooper was great. George Baker was wonderful. Curtis Birnbaum. Oh my goodness. I had experts that answered them. And I gave them I said, this doesn't come from my brain. Or David Bellavia. He said, is it really true that we will lose 90% of the population the first year? And we said, David and I said, yes. You plan worst case, Mr. President, or Mr. Trump, plan worst case. He was a candidate then. But I said, okay, let's just say it's only 10%. That's 3.5 million, or 3.2 at that time. Now with all the illegal aliens coming in, who knows what it is? 4 million body. Who cares? I don't care about them. They're inconsequential to me. But they're still in the United States. But that's hard to tell people. And so they go through a cognitive dissonance. They just shut down when they hear that kind of stuff. And we just say, you've got to, it's like all politics is local. All resilience, preparation, so on is local. just ask Noah. It's local and it's biblical. You take care of your family as best as you can. If things don't turn out well, it's like the helicopters I knew, the pilots I knew in Vietnam. You had a 6-shot revolver and you kept one bullet you kept one bullet for hard times. It's just it's a bad situation, but it's not completely impossible if you show an enemy that you're actually coming up with a deterrence. It can become a deterrent. If you show them that you're preparing, it'll do one of two things. It might have them second guess. If they know that you're going to have fuel, they know they're going to have comms, they know you're going to have people, they know you're going to have transportation, they know you're going to have food. For most of the people, a lot of people are going to die, that may be form of a deterrence. But right now, we don't have that deterrence. We don't have it, and they know that because they're in our grid. They're in the Confucius centers. They're in Princeton. They're in the universities and so on. They make friends. They on that point system over in communist China that their families are going to suffer if they don't bring information back, and we're starting to. Well, even some American industrials and citizens and so on. Well, just follow the money, because many of them don't really care about the future of our country. They just want to make money for their shareholders, which there ain't going to be any shareholders when the shit hits the fan. You won't have to worry about that.
Yeah, some of them may not believe it's going to happen, but they delude themselves. But look what's happening in the world right now. Who would have thought this? 2 years ago. 2 years ago, if you'd mentioned where the world's at today, 3 years ago, people would have laughed at you and told you to put on your tinfoil hat. They wouldn't believe where we're at today and where we're going next. I asked you the other day what was a chance of that this could lead to World War III, and you said, "Are we not in World War III already?" What do you think? Are we in World War III already? Is this the beginning of the stage?
We are. We are in World War III right now. We're engaged from all sides. We're engaged from Soviet Russia. We're also engaged from China right now, especially with cyber, there is no defense. We're also engaged with Iran. It's just a matter of time, and they're Islamic. They're religiously fanatic. They're hard to figure out. And I don't trust the IC community to try to figure it out because they don't have the Asian mind. You can't have somebody that doesn't understand the Asian mind, like a Westerner, to understand their mind. It's completely different. Same thing with the Soviet mind. They're different. And also, what was the train of thought on that? And also Pakistan. I don't know. They're certainly not our friends. I think we even have some Pakistan students here at the War College. I don't know. I don't care because they funded ISIS and Al Qaeda also. They were harboring bin Laden and didn't tell us. Probably because they were getting quite a few million from them. And also North Korea. We've got enemies everywhere. We got enemies in Venezuela. We got Chinese down in Peru right now that they bought into Peru quite a bit. Peru is a communist country now. And they're forming naval bases and fishing. They're there. We have missiles we have Spetsnaz, Russian Spetsnaz in Venezuela right now, protecting the non-viable president, so-called president there. And also we have Iranian. I think we probably still have some Iranian naval vessels there. So attacking us with, let's just say, a Scud missile from Venezuela, no attribution. From a missile out in the sea, from a freighter. We have no missile defense, no Aegis missiles down on the southern border. So all you need is one at about 40 to 100 kilometers above us over the central part of Kansas. When I was at the Army War College, I don't go to the big bedroom, we call it, but somehow about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I turn on my computer. I never do this. But I watched it eating my sandwich at the War College. I didn't go into what we call the big bedroom, the big assembly hall. It's about 500 students and their family, whatever. And this woman general was up there. And I knew her from NSA because I'd been to NSA, and she gave an unclassified milquetoast cyber protection briefing. And I caught the very end of it, and I listened to some of it. She had a couple people get up, a Navy guy that was an IT expert. She had an Air Force guy that was like a hologram. He was just a walking computer. He was amazing. And then I heard her say, "I have time for one more question." And some guy stood up in the back. I couldn't see him. He was focused in on the podium, and he said, "Ma'am, one fast question. What keeps you awake at night?" And boom, she said, "A high altitude nuclear burst over the central part of Kansas that will obliterate our electronics, and we're screwed." And we were trying to get the general or commandant enthused about cyber and about EMP. And all of a sudden, the next day, he said, "Give me everything you got on this." And well, a lot of good that did. We had a huge meeting with about 80 or 90, maybe 100. We had DHS, we had all kinds of people. I have the record of it right here. It actually went out to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and about 500 installations found out about it. But anyway, she went on to say that she's teaching her daughter how to read over 50,000 map, how to use a lensatic compass. She's teaching. She says, "I want her to be able to survive." And then the Navy guy said, the IT walking computer, also a hologram, he basically said the underground cables are going to be gone because the EMP one attenuates all the way the salt water. And never mind the fiberglass. He said fiberglass optic. He said it's because there's metal repeaters, that little SCADA systems that keep pushing, and then you got the receiving area. I know my son was laying those cables for a while in the Black Sea and all that. He was doing that, and then they go into a database. He said it'll blow all that. He said, and we're screwed because a lot of transmission of finances and everything is done with undersea cables, and they're all over the place in the world.
All your comms, all your banks, all your computers, all your digital money, poof.
And never mind the cloud. The cloud's going to disappear.
Wow. The cloud, yeah, the cloud will be gone.
Even with the cloud, if you're hit with a cyber attack, you can't do forensics on the cloud. Maybe that's changed, but how are you going to find out where you're attacked from? It's the cloud. I turn the radio on, and my music comes out. I'm not that good with a computer, but having taught cyber warfare, the base level that I know it, you don't have to be a computer whiz to do it. You don't need to be a computer scientist. Far from it. You don't need that. You just need common sense, which we don't have much in the United States anymore. And if we do, people can be bought, follow the money. Industrialists, there's not a care about the American lives, and that will be lost. And when, like I said, $1.2 billion was, according to Michael Mayview, good command sergeant major, wonderful, brilliant young man. My goodness, all the money that's been spent by the electric lobbyists to keep from hardening the grid, to keep protecting the grid, which it doesn't cost that much.
They spent more money to stop it than it would have taken to have done it. And so people out of their own pockets paying their utility bills have paid for lobbyists to fight hardening the grid, which are depicted of those very people, and they've spent enough money to have done the job. That's the shame of it all. Corruption and shame is unbelievable.
If a lot of I have two things to send out right now, and I said to you, hopefully both of them. One was written by John Hollerman that General Quast asked him to write, and he wrote a 52-page article, publication on grid down, death of a nation, due to starvation, disease, and no rule of law. Anyway, I've got that, and I also have a rather large death, murder, annihilation by PowerPoint, 95 slides. It walks you through failure to imagine electric grid. This is what a transformer looks like, all the way up to what you can do.
I believe that's what you and John presented, and you presented previously on a video with me, correct?
Yes, I think so, right. But it walks you through. I try to do it as though I was sitting in front of you. I try to make it like a conversation. I've given these briefings, I've given the same type of briefing, not that many, maybe 20 slides to Governor Brewer, the Texas Senate, the portions of it to President Trump. I've given it to 1,200 Mormons out in Delta, Utah on the Palladium. I've given it so many times. I know it by heart, but I want the people to see it because only the people can get things going. It's not Northcom, they're neutered. It's not FEMA, they're neutered. They have no idea how to go in a VUCA environment. No idea whatsoever. They're very good at what they do, though. They in the Cajun Navy, I mean, they're really good at what they do for smaller regional stuff, like Hurricane Katrina, which is a catastrophe, but it's not a cataclysmic event. It was a catastrophe if you owned a gin mill in New Orleans, but no, or if you were dumb enough to live in the parish that went underwater. But it's not. It's meant to get the people involved on this.
Well, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing here, and I'm posting links for people to get involved. And that's what I want people to do. I want people to check out the live video I did today and the video I did with Tommy Waller the day before, and see what we can do to get our nuclear spent fuel rod policy here.
Here's what I found out the short straw is, Greg. It took me a while to figure this out. When people write letters to their congressmen and women and senators and state senators and so on, don't say they're not going to do a damn thing. Just say all you have to do is tell the DOE, DHS, and DOD to do what they're told to do, and the NDAs. Just bring them in front of the committees and say, what did you, go line by line and say, what did you do? You were tasked by 21 December 2020 to have a FEMA regional exercise. Where is it? What's the result? Why didn't you do it? And bring them in and have them write and say, why don't you do it? Well, we're going to pull your funding. I don't care what you can do. You're going to have to do something because they don't care. They don't care. Now they probably won some wins for President Biden. They probably won some kind of a win, but even with the ridiculous $1.2 trillion Solyndra shovel-ready fiasco that they passed, I think the electric grid's going to get what, 28 million or something like that. Don't even bother taking it. What are you going to do?
They line the pockets of their buddies. That's all they do with these things. So we need to be heard. We got to be heard. We can have effect, but we got to be heard.
Right.
I'll tell you what, Ken, we're going to have to run here. What's your closing final thoughts? What do you want to leave the people with? You say we're in World War III now. This can get ugly on us. It could get ugly in a hurry. One
word. Jonathan Hollerman, being the survival, escape, resistance, and evasion guy, said, plan for the worst, hope for the best, and let God do the rest.
All right. Well,
that's it.
We're doing everything we can do, Ken. We're doing everything we can do. We're trying to wake people up and get them to take action to prevent some of these things, but also to take care of themselves. And I'd like to leave a final thought that, it's the world leaders that stir us up and cause trouble. But you can go in any country, in any place on earth, in any town, hamlet, or village and find good people. There's good people anywhere in the world. And that's the tragedy of all of this, is that people get played against each other. So, I don't want to disparage any people of any race, color, creed, religion. It's just that people get played, and these organizations and nations play us and play each other, and it leaves us in the mess we're in. So maybe one final
thought. You have the Patriots. There's all kinds of. Start storing some food. Start storing some barter, whether it's ammunition, liquor. I don't care what you want to do. The toilet paper, my goodness, toilet paper will not be that important in the future.
Hey, seeds will make good barter too, and I do have links for people to get seeds with market. Seeds are going to be gold. And the long-term food storage, you're going to trade that. That's going to be value if you want to get rid of it. You probably won't want to if you got it. That's why you want to go to places like prepwithgreg.com. You want to go to Trade Market. Check my links to those things below.
And you just plan for the worst. And another word that we mentioned of President Trump, sir, you always plan for the worst.
Amen.
If it's not, everything else will fall into place. Plan for the worst case situation.
Do everything you can, as much as you can. Be as ready as you can. You can't do everything, but do your level best.
Yeah.
Can't do everything, but do your level best. Ken, thank you for coming on the channel. Thank you. Hang on for just a minute. I'm going to end the video. Thank you for coming on the channel, and thank everybody for watching. Guys, if you're watching, go check out the previous 2 videos I put up. I got links on them of actions you can take. And in fact, if you watch any of my videos of this length of time, you're going to find I leave action steps, things that you can do. I try to do that. I try to bring something to the table more than put your head in the sand or buy more beans, which you should do, buy beans too, but don't ever put your hand in the sand. Don't ever panic, but hang in there. I hope and pray, do the best. And like I said, hope God will take care of the rest, and be sure to pray and hug your family and kids and tell everybody you love them.
Yeah.
And that I want to say for those watching, Greg out.
Okay.